All right, welcome to this video. We are going to do our basically our message for this week. Before I did that, I wanted to go ahead and address a couple things. First of all, we are still set for June 28th for our first service back. So far, nothing's changed, so we are looking toward that date as of right now. If something changes, I promise I will let you know. The other thing is that tomorrow is actually the last Sunday in May, and it's also the last day that your daily breads have a devotion for you. So what I'm going to do tomorrow at 12 o'clock, that's going to be Sunday, probably the day most of you are going to be watching this. At 12 o'clock, I'll be out front with daily breads. If you want to drop by and pick some up, you can just drive by. I'll hand them to you. You don't have to get out of your car or anything like that. And we'll have our little drive-in, and maybe if you're lucky, I'll give you a cheeseburger too. You're not going to be that lucky. Don't think you will. But today I wanted to start talking a little bit. We talked about this patience and how we have to have patience to get through struggles and patience to rely on God that He's going to get us through it. And one of the things that causes us to lose faith is a lack of patience, not being able to wait on God. And we're going to kind of shift gears, but we're actually going to go kind of in the same direction today as we talk about one of the stories in the Bible where Jesus is healing. And one of the things that happens with him is people are going through these times, they're going through these tough times, and they have this time where they have to make some faith decisions. And patience really shows up in both of them, so it kind of ties in. But we're going to move into Mark chapter 5. Mark chapter 5 is where we're going to be looking at today and for the next few of this series here. But Mark chapter 5 tells us a story of two people we're going to look at. One of them being this woman who has this issue of blood that she's had for 12 years. And the other issue is Jairus' daughter, and we're going to talk about them as we go. But Mark chapter 5, if you want to look there in your Bible, if not, I'll throw it up on the screen here. It's Mark chapter 5, verse 21. It says this, it says, "Now, when Jesus had crossed over again by boat to the other side, a great multitude gathered to him, and he was by the sea. And behold, one of the rulers of the synagogue came, Jairus by name. And when he saw him, he fell at his feet and begged him earnestly, saying, 'My little daughter lies at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her, that she may be healed, and she will live.' So Jesus went with him, and a great multitude followed him and thronged him. Now a certain woman had a flow of blood for 12 years, and had suffered many things from many physicians. She had spent all that she had, and was no better, but rather grew worse. When she had heard about Jesus, she came behind him in the crowd and touched his garment. For she said, 'If only I may touch his clothes, I shall be made well.' Immediately the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt it in her body that she was healed of the affliction. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that power had gone out of him, turned around in the crowd and said, 'Who touched my clothes?' But his disciples said to him, 'You see the multitude thronging you, and you say, "Who touched me?"' And he looked around to see her who had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, 'Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your affliction.' And while he was still speaking, some came from the ruler of the synagogue's house, who said, 'Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?' And as soon as Jesus heard the word that was spoken, he said to the ruler of the synagogue, 'Do not be afraid, only believe.' And he permitted no one to follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. Then he came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue and saw a tumult and those who wept and wailed loudly. When he came in, he said to them, 'Why make this commotion and weep? The child is not dead, but sleeping.' And they ridiculed him. When he had put all outside, he took the father and the mother of the child and those who were with him, and entered where the child was lying. Then he took the child by the hand and said to her, 'Talitha cumi,' which is translated, 'Little girl, I say to you, arise.' Immediately the girl arose and walked, for she was 12 years of age. And they were overcome with great amazement. He commanded them strictly that no one should know it, and that something should be given her to eat." We look at these two stories, and there's some common things that we'll talk about as we look at them. But one of the things we're going to talk about is just the fact that this had been, like I said, one of those things where time had gotten so far, and it seemed that they were kind of at the end of it when Jesus actually performs these miracles. And like I said, we focus on people getting through struggles for the last few series of these videos. And today we come to this passage teaching about God and performing miracles for people and healing. But first up, I wanted to really look at the woman. The exact issue that she has, whatever it is, this issue of blood that she had for 12 years, we don't know exactly what it is or how it's come about. We have our thoughts and our theories, but the point isn't about what it is that she has. The point isn't about the struggles she's going through. The point is that Jesus heals her. She had this for over a decade. She had it for 12 years, it says, that she had been going through this. It had been a long time. Do you know how long 12 years is? 12 years ago, George Bush was president. Just let that sink in for a minute in your mind, how long ago that was, that George Bush was president. And like my son Wesley, he wasn't even around. There was no Wesley, which is sad. But I had on my Facebook a picture of the kids that were here when they did the play when we came that first year, which is just almost 10 years. Anyway, and we're sitting there looking at it, and you see all these kids, and they're so young and so little and cute, and you just laugh at them. And then Bill Alexi was there too, and he looks about the same as he did back then. But those kids have become now adults, some of them, and you're looking at them, and they're driving and graduating high school and going through life, and time passes pretty quick. But when you're going through struggles, sometimes it seems like forever, doesn't it? It seems sometimes our struggles can be just a few weeks, and it seems like we're stuck in there forever. This poor lady had been bleeding for 12 years. Sounds awful, doesn't it? And it gets worse. As you read on, it starts to talk about her. But because of this issue, she was ostracized. She was kicked out of society. She was basically like a leper, considered unclean by society, just pushed away. Completely left to her own means outside of society and not being allowed to be around people. And as you read the word and you listen to what she's going through, I mean, she was treated like she had the coronavirus. Nobody could go near her. They, had to completely be cleaned and everything. If she came in contact with them and cleansed and go to the temple and be cleansed just from being around this lady. And her arrival at this mass of people was risking her very life. Just showing up and pushing herself into this mass of people was risking that they could turn on her for just being there. But she'd already been to the doctors. What does it say? She'd been to the doctors and it dried up her bank account. It took everything she had, but it didn't dry up the blood. In fact, what the Bible tells us is she had been to the doctors and had suffered more by the doctors from trying to get things fixed. And what had happened is it had gotten worse. Maybe you've been there. Maybe you've been at the end of your rope. Maybe you've been at the end of your finances. Maybe you've been at the end of your health, at the end of your health, and the world can't help you, and you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. See, that's where she is. She thought everything was given up and she had nothing left. And what the Bible tells us is, it got worse. Right when she thought she could handle no more, it gets worse. Now what do? See, when we talk about Jairus is the same place. Jairus has come to see the teacher, the teacher is what they're calling him here with it, to see Jesus because he knows that Jesus can heal his daughter. And he goes up there and they come and they tell him, leave him alone. She's dead. It's over. And I mean, you understand. When you actually accept that it's over, when you're hit with that end, it just crushes you. When you go through suffer, I can suffer no more, and all of a sudden any hope of anything else is taken away. It crushes you, and that's where Jairus is. That's where this woman has been. She's tried everything. She'd been everywhere, talked to all the doctors. They've done nothing but make it worse for her. And that's where we find her going through all this. But Jesus is about to make an entrance. We find the story of her coming to Jesus, and you read the story and it's so amazing. So amazing, the fact that she finds this hope that Jesus will heal her. Not just hope, but faith. Faith that by just touching his garments, she's going to be healed of this thing that she's had for so long. You know, we've been studying how we don't get to decide how God works. We don't get to decide how God is going to work in our lives, the things that he's going to do. We just have to allow him to do it his way. We have to trust him that he knows what he's doing because he's sovereign. As we're going through struggles, we have to be able to be patient and persistent and trust that God knows what he's going to do. And here we have this lady, and she's having to do that. She's having to go through all these struggles, all this time of suffering and pain. And she gets to Jesus, and she hasn't been able to do anything. She hasn't been able to get it done on her own. But she comes and realizes that he's in control still, that God is still in control. You know, maybe right now you're struggling. Maybe right now you're having a hard time. You're going through the storms of life, and you can't see the end. Maybe you're, going through all these things and you just don't see God changing anything in your life, and your patience is wearing thin. One of the things that we see with all of this is, her going through these things is something that we can relate to. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe like her, you're lonely. Maybe you're feeling lonely. You're feeling outcast. You're feeling unwanted or unneeded by society. And even worse, you've tried everything you know how to do, and you feel that not even God wants you. Maybe not even God cares enough about you to look at your struggles, to look at your pain. But one of the things that we see from this lady is God doesn't always tell us when he's about to bless us. He doesn't always give us this announcement that this great thing is about to happen. He doesn't warn us when he's about to intervene in our lives. He doesn't warn us when he's about to touch our homes. He doesn't warn us when he's about to touch our families, touch our bodies, touch our finances, and do miracles in our lives. We don't always get a warning that Jesus is about to show up. The Bible just tells us that he's going to do it. He tells us that he's going to take care of us, that he's going to be there for us, but it doesn't tell us when. And patience is waiting for his miracle. Patience that gets us through these struggles that we're going through and comes to God is waiting for that miracle, knowing that it's going to happen even when we don't see it coming. And this is what Jesus had to say. Listen to what Jesus said to the people here when they came to tell him and to tell Jairus about his daughter. They come to tell Jairus about his daughter and say, give up. It's over. Give up. Listen to what Jesus says. He says in verse 36, he says this. He says, as soon as Jesus heard the word that was spoken, he said to the ruler of the synagogue, he says, do not be afraid, only believe. Do not be afraid, only believe. We look at this poor woman. She had nothing left. She was poor. She had absolutely nothing left. She had no money. She had no answers. She had no self-confidence. The crowds are thronging Jesus. They're wanting to get up to Jesus, to see him, to touch him, to shake his hand, to give him a big hug, to let him know how much they love him and care about him and everything. They're so happy that Jesus is coming into the city, and they're running just to greet him, and this mass of people is just surrounding him. And here we find this lady coming up to him and just wanting to get it to touch his garments. She's not one of the people who feels that she has the right to go up and shake his hand. She doesn't feel she's one of the people who has the right to go up to him and give him a big hug and let him know how much she loves him. What she sees is herself as someone who can only crawl up to him and reach out and touch his garment, knowing that if she can just do that, that she can be healed. In her head, she doesn't think that Jesus would actually reach out to her. She doesn't think if she gets up to Jesus, she could ask and say, Jesus, heal me, and he would care enough about her struggles to actually reach into her life and heal her. Never crosses her mind. She's past that point. She thinks he's too busy for her problems. He's too concerned with this mass of people for her problems. So she gets up to him and reaches out and touches his garment, because in spite of everything else, in spite of the problems she's having, in spite of the loss of her health, her finances, and self-confidence, in spite of that, she comes and has the faith to reach out to Jesus, knowing if she could just reach out, that it touch his clothes, that she could be healed. So she comes to Jesus, and she reached out to him. She reached out to Jesus. she's made well. We look at that story and we talk about what Jesus says, that feels the power of God. He knows what's going on. Of course he knows who touched him. Of course he knows what happened. It's not his clothes that healed this lady. It's Jesus. Because she was wrong. She had the faith that he would heal her, but she was wrong about the reason. See, Jesus did care about her struggles. He did care about her problems. He did care enough to heal her. And her faith that she could barely hang on to anymore, that caused her to reach out to Jesus one last time, was enough that Jesus healed her. Maybe today you can relate. You've tried to get by yourself. You've tried to get through the problems that you're facing. The doctors are done. Society is done. Your friendships are done. Your family is done. Everything is done around you and they can't help you anymore. And you think that even God is done with you. But you're wrong. Just because you don't see the miracle coming doesn't mean it's not right around the next corner. Do not be discouraged. Do not be discouraged. Continue to place your faith in Jesus Christ. Reach out to Jesus Christ. Let him pull you through the struggle. Let him pull you through and pour the blessings out upon you on the other side of the struggle. Reach out to Jesus. Let your faith be shown in him. Do not give up. Do not be afraid. Only believe.